News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman. Markets ended the day down with the S&P 500 down close to 2/3%. The Nasdaq lost 0.75%, while the Dow fell 0.25%. The price of oil falling nearly 2% to just under $57 a barrel. Meanwhile, Ford Motor has suspended its full-year financial guidance due to auto tariffs. The carmaker says it expects to take a $1.5 billion hit to overall earnings due to those tariffs. Ford had originally forecast around $8.5 billion of earnings for this year. Another company withdrawing its forecast due to tariffs is Mattel. The toy maker reporting better than expected first quarter results, but had to withdraw its forecast that predicted as much as 3% growth this year after 3 years of flat or declining revenue. Reports say that on April 28th, air traffic controllers at Newark Airport lost radar and radio communications for 90 seconds as they guided planes to the busy airport. The incident was caused by a technology failure at the Federal Aviation Administration operation in Philadelphia, which guides flights into and out of the New Jersey airport. Multiple employees were placed on trauma leave after the incident, leading to Newark suffering a reduction in staffing and flight delays and cancellations. President Trump's tariff policies have roiled global markets and threatened to ratchet up the prices of consumer goods. Despite that, Citigroup Chief Executive Officer Jane Fraser says,
when you step back and you look at the economic advantages of America that we felt so positive about in January are still there today. Labor mobility, the breadth and depth of our capital market, never bet against the American entrepreneur. Those still remain strong.
That's Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser speaking with Bloomberg at the Milken Institute Global Conference in Los Angeles. Fraser says she's still seeing consumer spending holding up in spite of the conflicting economic signals. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, also speaking at the Milken Institute Global Conference, says that the Trump administration's policies will solidify the U.S. as a place for international capital.
America is the Schelling point of global finance. We have the world's reserve currency and the deepest and most liquid capital markets and the strongest property rights. For these reasons, the United States is the premier destination for international capital, and the administration's goal is to make it even more appealing for investors like you.
That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Still, Apollo CEO Mark Rowan says the trade wars are hurting America's brand. Rowan spoke to Bloomberg's Shonali Basak from the Milken Institute Global Conference.
I see us moving from what was hyper-exceptionalism to merely exceptional, because I don't think there are good alternatives to the U.S. today, but that can change over time.
That's Apollo CEO Mark Rowan. President Trump has offered $1,000 plus paid travel to undocumented migrants if they agree to leave the U.S. voluntarily. Speaking of Bloomberg's David Gura, Democrat Governor of New Mexico Michelle Lujan Grisham doesn't like the idea.
I think it is a ineffective and really gross tool to suggest that people were just here to quickly make a buck and that there's no real issue with asylum and refugee status and trying to build a safer future for your family. And it's pretty disrespectful.
That's New Mexico Democrat Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. Grisham's thoughts differ from North Carolina Republican Congressman Addison McDowell, who spoke with ABC News.
We've been invaded by military-age men that want to traffic in drugs, human trafficking. They don't care about us. And so the president, thankfully, does care about America, and he wants these terrorists, these gang members, these rapists, he wants them gone.
That's North Carolina Republican Congressman Addison McDowell. Meanwhile, the Associated Press is reporting that a boat carrying migrants capsized off the coast of San Diego earlier today. So far, 3 people are reported dead with 4 injured, while the Coast Guard searches for 9 others. The boat flipped over around 35 miles north of the Mexican border. Drugstore giant Rite Aid has told its employees that it intends to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection less than a year after it completed an earlier restructuring. The company says it's been unable to secure additional financing from lenders and will be cutting jobs at its corporate offices in Pennsylvania. Rite Aid CEO Matthew Schroeder blames tariffs as well as increased costs from landlords and suppliers for the company's problems. Shares in Tyson Foods fell close to 8%, despite the food giant's earnings jumping more than expected due to increased profits from chicken sales, which outweighed losses at the company's beef division. Adjusted operating income rose almost 27% from a year earlier to $515 million. President Trump announcing alongside Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, and Washington Commanders owner Josh Harris that the 2027 NFL Draft will be held in D.C. on the National Mall. The draft has become a major attraction, with 600,000 people attending this year's version in Green Bay, while 750 50,000 people attended last year in Detroit. Next year's draft will be held in Pittsburgh. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Dan Schwartzman, and this is Bloomberg.